The idea behind the show is simply asking guests what they would tell a stranger on a plane if they were sitting next to them and the stranger asked them for advice.
The scenery is passing very fast, but the seer is constant. The one who's seeing is the same.
Let me appreciate you for asking a question that I haven't been asked after 2,500 or so interviews over the years.
Is you have to drop the ego, which is everyone's greatest obstacle.
In 2008, Grant and I had been married for 4 years. I was pregnant with my first child. The economy was collapsing, and we were on the verge of losing everything financially.
So welcome, everybody. It's so exciting to be here with another edition of our show. I'm super stoked and excited to have a first-time guest, somebody I haven't had the opportunity to interview just yet, but I'm going to now, which I'm super excited about. So Kristina Mänd, and I'm going to see if I pronounce this right, Lakhiani?
Yes, very good.
Thank you. I did some practice beforehand. So I'm so excited to be here with you today. And I want to dive into the new book you're working on. I want to dive in a little bit to the Mindvalley world as well. But I have a couple of questions I'd like to ask every guest I interview. I've asked one of these questions over 6,000 times. So I still am excited about this question. I don't know why, but I call it the time machine question. It's almost like it sounds like, and basically the question is this: if you could jump into a time machine, go back and talk to a younger Kristina and give her some life advice based on what you've learned in the years since, what do you think you might tell younger Kristina?
Well, first of all, thank you, Corey, for having me. It's a pleasure, and I'm glad that you're excited, because excitement kind of, it spills over. So I feel more excited now. When it comes to the time machine, if that time machine would move me back to that time in my current age, then I guess it would be just an interesting experience to be there, but I wouldn't give myself any advice. If it also regressed my age and kept my own wisdom back, I would probably do all the silly things I haven't done in a long time, because I'm not 18-year-old, I'm not 25-year-old anymore. So I would definitely party until the morning, wear something silly and be silly. But I wouldn't give myself an advice for one simple reason. If I were to give myself advice and even maybe convince the younger version of me not to do certain mistakes, I would deprive myself of an experience which have made me what I am right now. And I'm not sure if I would want to take the risk of ending up having a completely different person on hand right now at this point. So I'd rather not do something which is such an integral part of my, I am what I am, thanks to all the stupid things I did when I was younger.
So I love that. And I'll say I'm about 50-50. 50% of the people I ask that question say some form of, they wouldn't even get in the time machine if they had the opportunity. They might get in the time machine if they could go somewhere else and it wouldn't affect anything. But most of the people I talk to in that 50% wouldn't go back and tell their younger self anything. They'd actually, a lot of them have said they'd be scared to even go interact with the younger self in case the butterfly effect changed anything. So it is kind of intriguing how when we're younger, we want to change everything about our life. And then as we get older and gain some wisdom and life experience, most of us, if we're happy where we're at, would never change a thing. And that's even what some of them say they would tell their younger self, is just don't change anything. I just want to give you a high five. Keep doing what you're doing. You're on the right track. So your answer definitely echoes what I have heard in the past, which I love. And it's interesting sometimes to hear that some people will go back and talk to the younger self and don't care if it would change something. So I love the different answers to that question. Second question I said I ask everybody is very similar, but you'll probably see quickly the difference between the two. I call it the passenger question. And basically it's this: if you were sitting next to a passenger on a plane, a stranger, they leaned over and asked you for life advice. Now, this isn't advice you give to younger Kristina. So this one you could probably give and you wouldn't have to worry about affecting your life. But if you could give advice to a stranger on a plane that needed some advice, what do you think you might tell the stranger on a plane?
I think it depends on whether the stranger would have asked me for advice. If the stranger just shared their life story, it's not very likely I would give advice. Sometimes I don't say that I'm such a nice person as never to advise anything to anyone, but I usually would do that to the people that I really love and who are very close to me. But strangers, it's not very likely I would advise anything. And there are several reasons for that. First of all, there is this idea that the moment you give advice, you take responsibility for that person's future in some little way. But that's probably not what bothers me. I just don't think that that advice should be given if it's not asked, unless it's someone who is in your care. And if it's asked, there is always an option that the person doesn't take your advice, or doesn't listen to you, or doesn't believe you. And yeah, I have very chill relationship with advice.
Well, I love that you're honest about that, and I love the fact that you've maybe, it sounds like you've made peace with that, and and found a way to make that your superpower. So I love that. So I want to shift over to talk about your book, and first and foremost, I love the title. So we always hear people talking about owning a word, like owning a name that's different, and owning that so that when people search that, you're the only one that comes up. I want to talk about the title but I want to ask you, was that part of it? Was that intentional with the name that you chose?
I would have loved it to be my creation, but the word flawsome existed before I stumbled upon it. I do not know how long it has existed. It's a word that nobody has claimed. It is somewhere out in the internet, and I have claimed it for my book. I don't think it's fair to. I don't think it's fair to actually. Get the property rights on something so generic as the word. So yeah, I just stumbled upon it, and I think it came into my life when I needed it, because I was writing a book and I had a whole lot of ideas how to call it. But then when the book was ready, it was so clear that it was becoming flawsome and nothing else.
Well, let me ask you this, and when I ask that too, I feel like sometimes we can kind of own the name in the minds of other people, and of course, it doesn't mean intellectually we own it, but we're the person that they think of when they think of that name. And I feel like that's going to happen for you with this name. But and when I Googled it, by the way, you came up right away, so you're already starting to own this word. But what does it mean to you? Like, what does flawsome mean to you? I mean, I know what it means to me. I did a little bit of research of what it kind of technically means, but I'm curious what it means to you.
You actually hit the nail on the head. I believe that flawsome, everybody has to come up with their own definition of flawsome. In my definition, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's when you don't let your flaws be, your curse, when you can still be awesome with your flaws. But of course, in my book, I go further and deeper than that, because the idea that you just own your flaws and you're just so, lovable no matter what you are, it's not new. It's not new at all. And I would actually like people to look a little deeper. So what I'm driving at in my book is that it is usually those flaws that we are most ashamed of, not the easy ones, which is so easy to throw around. I'm working too much, or I'm a perfectionist. These are the easy flaws. Nobody's going to look at you and say, like, shame on you. But the ones which you don't dare to share, the ones which make you blush or cringe or maybe shrink and feel not worthy. I think that when you have the courage to own those things, to look them in the eye and admit that they're part of your story and they have made you what you are, and then you have a chance to actually discover that your biggest strength and your biggest value for the world may lie in those very shameful qualities about you.
Wow. And so with the book itself, if somebody were to pick up the book today and they said to you, "Oh my God, Kristina, I love the book. Here's what I took from it." What would you love here's what I took from it to be? Like, what would you like a person to walk away from the book and say, "This book did this for me"?
I think it's so, it's such a journey that it's going to be different for other people. So my first editor, I love when people love my book, and with that, I expect that there will be people who will hate it, which I think is fine as well. But my first editor, she loved my book, and at some point she said, "I'm going to highlight some of the ideas which I loved, and I think they should go into your social media when you start launching the book." She had like 2 pages of quotes. So, and there are a lot of things. There are really a lot of things. And I really, what I think I would make me happy is if the readers who picked the book, if they had paradigm shifted in just even one thing, anything at all, and that would be an accomplishment for me, in the sense that the book has served its purpose. Which one? I think you see. I do hope there will be a lot of people who will be reading it, but every single person has their own journey and they have their questions and their struggles. So that paradigm shift or that realization has to be relevant to that particular person. That's why I don't want to pinpoint one particular thing. Maybe if you're asking it as a marketing question, then my answer would be, I would like people to find the way back to themselves real.
Well, and I love that. In terms of, the fact that I love the fact that you're not trying to put any kind of demands out into the world of this is what you have to do. This, like, I noticed that that's something that really rings true with what you're saying, is you want it to be, and I'm just talking the book, it sounds like in general, you want people to be who they are and to meet them where they're at, versus saying, this is what I'm directing you in this direction. It's more like, let's figure out what you need, who you are, and you'll ultimately come to that by yourself. And I'm just going to be a guide. That's kind of what I'm hearing.
And that's so true, because guess what? My book is about authenticity, right? About people finding their way back to themselves. And who am I to tell them what it means to be you? I couldn't know. I think as many people as there are on this planet Earth, as many destinations that book is going to have.
So now, if we shift it to Mindvalley for a minute, so you're co-founder of Mindvalley. Obviously, most of the people listening to this, I think, would be very familiar with the company and with what you guys do. But whether they are or not, I guess I'll ask this question: will this become, or is this a? Well, I'll say, is this or will this become a course inside of Mindvalley as well?
Yes, it is, of course, because that's how that's how it works. I'm doing pre-sales of my book, and because the launch is still a while ahead, of course, we have to give something along with the book. And I recorded 2 programs to go with the book. They are not. They're connected to the book in terms of theme and topics that we discuss, but they're not like a replica of the book by no means. So yes, there are Mindvalley courses, but they haven't been launched yet.
Nice. Well, and then I don't feel bad for asking the question, because I am a member, and I feel bad if I was asking the question and it was sitting there on the top of the website and I hadn't seen it because I've been so busy. So let me ask you this then as well on the Mindvalley side before we shift back to the book. But Mindvalley, and I said, a lot of the people listening will know what Mindvalley is, but just quickly for those that, when I say the word, if they're not familiar, how would you describe Mindvalley?
I think Mindvalley is one of the biggest educational platforms in the world, which teaches things which are important for life. How to live extraordinary, happy, fulfilled, meaningful lives. And we cover the whole multitude of topics which are not covered by the regular academic education. So it's a school of life.
I love that. The school of life. That's a great summary. And so
shifting back.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm super familiar, so I definitely saw that right away, but I'm glad you pointed it out, because again, somebody who maybe is starting to learn what Mindvalley is, they'll recognize that logo right when they go to the website. And in fact, if you wouldn't have said it, they'll probably go, where have I seen that before? They're watching this interview and find their way to the website. So to shift back to the book as we start to wind down, in terms of the book itself, you mentioned that you're launching, I guess the book, you said you're launching in advance. So timeline, of course, it depends when they're listening to this, but when is there an exact day right now? I think I know the answer to this, but is there an exact day when people will be jumping into the store to buy the book and all that kind of good stuff?
So the launch day is June, and that's when the book is going to be on the bookshelves in the bookstores, and that's what a book launch day is. But of course, because I'm restless, I'm going to give an opportunity for people to pre-buy the book or pre-order the book, and essentially they buy a book, they get one of the Mindvalley new courses on self-love. It's called 10 Questions for Self-Love, while they're waiting for the book to be shipped to them.
Wow. And then, so in terms of that, just one last thing on that side, and then I want to ask you, of course, how people can find the book, because I'm sure now, even if it's not available for pre-order, or depending when they're listening to this again, what stage it's at, I'm sure you have it the website where people can go to learn fully about it. But one other question about the book itself, in terms of the book, what is your reason or catalyst for wanting to even put this stuff into a book? I mean, you're part of Mindvalley, so of course you could put it in there, you could put it as a video, you could do a whole bunch of things. What is the reason for a book for you? Like, are you a book lover, or what's the book connection?
Well, I am a book lover, obviously. Maybe you can see by the background, which is actually a real background.
I was wondering that, by the way.
Yeah, I am a writer as well. And I think I've always been a writer, but I've never owned that part of me. I've always enjoyed writing. I enjoyed literature. So for me, the book is the ultimate form of self-expression. Of course, I've created courses with Mindvalley. I've spoken on stage. I've taught people live. So this was a combination of my teachings, which is my profession, with my passion, which is writing. I do write much better than I speak. So it had to happen. I always knew it would happen, but it happened when I was ready for that, when my message was ready.
So last official question, then again, I just want to ask where people can get the book, all that kind of good stuff. But the last official question is, I love to ask people this question because I love the different answers you get. But what would you say is the one thing that most people, might not be everybody, but most people don't know about you?
About me?
Yeah.
Most people don't know that now I'm a hobby farmer. That's my new thing. But that's not because I keep it secret, because it's absolutely new. I do not know. There are a lot of things that people don't know about me. Obviously, most people. My deepest, darkest fears, I have them. A lot of people are surprised that I love actually classical literature over the literature in my own industry.
That's a fair assessment.
I'm quite a snob when it comes to art and music and this kind of things. Yeah, there are a lot of things people don't know about me, because my life is so full of different aspects, and usually we know people in one of the facets that they show to the world. Like, if you know me professionally, you would know my professional side. If you know me as a mom in school, you would know me from that angle. So different people know me in different ways. But let's say in Mindvalley, there are so many things to discover.
I love that. And I'll ask you then, I just picked up this book yesterday. I don't know if you can see it here, The Prophet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever read that, but when you say about those type of books, like that's like a classic literature book that I picked up yesterday, and I had never heard of it. And then I started reading about it, and it's considered like a masterpiece. So if you haven't checked that out, The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. So
yeah, of course, I would actually like to read that. I haven't. My another very interesting quirk is that I like to read books when they're in my hands. So I was waiting. I always wanted to read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search of Meaning, but I couldn't find it, and Amazon didn't ship to where I lived. So it took me a few years until I read it, only because I have to have a book in my hands. That's a little quirk about me.
well, you know what? Obviously, I just showed you a printed book. That's my quirk too. I have never yet in my life, hate admitting this, I've never read a digital book yet in my life. A Kindle book, I've never been able to finish one. So I'm a book in my hand, and I have Viktor Frankl's book somewhere here too. I love it. It's a classic. So
Yeah.
Kristina, this has been an absolute pleasure. Last quick thing, of course, is for those that want to grab the book, where would you send them? And is there any last thing you want to share about the book for those that may be wanting to jump on and grab a copy themselves?
Of course, I would like people to buy a book from my website, because that's where I give the bonus and the gifts and all things like that. And that's kristinamand.com/book. And Kristina Mänd, I have an Estonian name, Kristina with a K, M-A-N-D. Of course, Mindvalley will be selling the book as well. And it will be on the shelves of Barnes and Nobles, I believe, and some other big shops in US. So, and maybe even in the airport. That would be fun.
That would be awesome and really fun. And I expect I'm going to open up the New York Times at some point and see it near the top of that or on the top of that list. So I can't wait until that actually actualizes itself. So thank you so much, Kristina. As I said, this has been an absolute pleasure. I'll call it a to be continued with your permission, and just say till next time. But thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really enjoyable conversation.